60,000 people, if they save 2%, which is 1,200 people,
Okay.
1,200 people at $15.79, that's 18,000 or almost $19,000 in a day.
Wow.
That they saved.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Callie.
And I'm Cole.
And welcome back to another episode of Doodie Calls.
Episode 4, Part 2, Episode 5, Christmas edition.
Christmas edition. We made sweatshirts or shirts for this.
Yes,
for
all
this
festive.
occasion.
All festive.
I also have a little Santa poop on my desk, so.
Yeah. So.
Take it away.
All right. Well, first, I guess we'll wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Hope everybody's safe. Has a good holiday season and a Happy New Year as well. We'll make one more video here before the end of the year, and then we'll be in 2022 already.
Oh boy.
But I guess this episode, last episode we talked about construction sites and the benefits and the financial impacts and environmental impacts that portable restrooms have on construction sites. And so this week we figured we could cover the events. I know we talked about doing them both in one episode, but I think it was going to
be a little too long.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information. There is. We didn't want to bore everybody and
throw everything out there.
Yeah, and make it confusing, honestly, too. Yeah. So I've got my notes back. This one is for the events. This is just the excerpt of the summary of that study. The University of Missouri did 2 studies. They did one on the construction site, and then they did a separate one on a couple different events. And I guess really when we get, or the kinds of events that we deal with, we do differentiate between construction sites or long-term rentals and shorter, event rentals, anywhere from an afternoon, a couple hours, or 3, 4, 5 day, even a week-long or 2-week-long event. But we do differentiate in the equipment, in the scheduling, in the sizing, on those events compared to the other construction sites or long-term restroom rentals. But I would say that of the events, when we're in that category, we kind of split them up into 2 separate types. When it comes to sizing, when it comes to the types of the equipment, the service schedule, things like that. The one category would be your smaller events, like your auctions, your backyard parties, your weddings. We do a lot of weddings. If you have an outdoor venue or something, we do a lot of weddings. So that's kind of one category. The other category would be your bigger, your fairs, your festivals, music concerts, car shows,
things like that.
Things that last multiple days too, or span over a larger area. And those events, compared to weddings typically there's a few hundred people there. These events, the car shows and things like that, they can have 50 to 100,000 people. The Smoky Hill River Festival here in town, I think they get 60,000+ through the door from Thursday to Sunday. So, I mean, there's a lot of differences between a wedding with 200 people for a couple hours or a reception for a couple hours for 200 people versus a multi-day event like the River Festival with 60,000 people.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and I would say the benefits to having a restroom at like a small wedding or your auction or your backyard party, really, most people aren't selling things at their wedding or the auction. The auction, things are getting sold, and you want to keep people there because they'd be more likely to buy something.
Sure. But
compared to places like concerts where you have food vendors and you have artists and you have things like that are selling stuff, your revenues or the purpose of the event is a little bit different. So for the smaller events, I would say the primary benefit would be convenience and just providing a comfortable experience for your guests, for the people that are attending the event. For auctions, things like that, you don't want people leaving, and that's generally what it is when it comes to portable restrooms and events, is you want to keep people at the event for as long as possible.
Right, absolutely.
So going to these larger events, these fairs and these festivals, a lot of the times, if there's things being sold at the event, I know like with the River Festival, we have the art show that there's a lot of vendors there, and then there's a lot of food vendors as well. And the longer people are there, the more likely they are to spend more money on art and on food and things like that. So if those people leave to go to the restroom off site, then they're not going to be there. They're not going to be spending that money. So what from the study, what we read was to kind of give it a baseline. Most people use the restroom once every 4 hours, just kind of as a baseline average every 4 hours. So that 1 per 100 or 1 per 50 ratio, that's assuming a certain amount of time, a certain duration. I would say for a wedding, 200 people for 4 hours, 2 units would be sufficient. If you're going to get into that 4, 6, 8, 10 hour, 12 hour duration on another event or even on a wedding, and you're going to have that number of people there the whole time, then you'd want to bump it up to that 1 per 50.
Right.
So if they're using the restroom every 4 hours, each restroom can take 200 uses approximately before it's considered unsanitary. That's the maximum capacity that a standard unit can hold. Men on average, they use the restroom, or when they use the restroom, on average they're going to spend about 57 seconds in the bathroom. Women are about 75 seconds, so a little bit longer. And then how long, just to ask you, how long would you say would be your maximum acceptable wait at an event to use a restroom? Like if you had to wait in line to use the restroom, how long would you be comfortable waiting?
I mean, it depends. No, I'm kidding. I don't know, probably 5-10 minutes, I think, before I'll try to find someplace else.
Yeah, or consider leaving.
Or consider leaving.
Yeah, and that's what the study found was the expected wait time on the people that they surveyed going into the events was about 5 minutes. The maximum acceptable wait time was about 10 minutes. They did find, though, that people were a little bit more patient than 10 minutes when it actually came down to it, but they said once that wait time reaches, I think they said the mid-teens, so probably 12, 15, 17 minutes, somewhere in there, that's when people started making other arrangements or leaving the event.
Right. No, I mean, I know we were hanging out with friends last night, and like there was only one place, and I was ready to go after about.
Yeah, because you waited for a while.
I waited for like an hour. I checked a couple times. But so I don't know.
Yeah, but to read, from this study a little bit, I don't want to read just straight from it too much, but I highlighted a few things that were important. And we'll talk about the financial benefits and the impact that people leaving early from the event have. But really what it comes down to is, and they say it perfectly here, the customer service level is defined in terms of the length of the line or the queue size.
Okay.
So, and that's before each unit. So individual units, but on average, most units are going to have the same amount of people in the line because everybody's, if you have a lot of people going to the bathroom, they're just going to go to the shortest line. So they'll balance out. The average usage rate per person is assumed once every 4 hours. And then, so your standards, and we'll put up a chart that kind of show the number of units that you need versus the number of people and how long and the duration and everything. And that's a baseline, but it does a good job at least getting that estimate out there to where it's a starting point for us when we size an event or when we recommend a certain number of units. It's also a starting point for the promoter so that they can kind of get an idea. And then from there we'll get into some of the more intricate details with it, which is placement, if we're going to have peak usage times or if it's all going to be spread out, service frequency, things like that. But the queue with 10 minutes, assuming, on average, it's going to be about a minute for every time somebody uses the restroom.
Okay.
So you really want to limit the queue size. You want to have enough restrooms to limit that queue to 10. So people aren't, at any given time, you're not having to wait more than 10 minutes to use the restroom on average.
Okay.
So reducing that queue size will improve the experience both for the users and then as well as for the event promoters and the vendors as well, because the more likely people are to be happy with the sanitation facilities provided, the more likely they will be to stay longer at that event. And so if you have vendors on site and you're selling things at an event, there is a direct correlation to the average amount of time and the average revenue per hour that event is open, or people are there. So if you take that, and the math kind of works out, and I'll just use the study here. It's a couple pages in.
Okay. Oh boy, look at that.
Yeah, there's this study's fairly long. So the example was on one of the events that they studied, they had a total crowd of about 60,000 people over the course of the one day on the event. Okay. And they were able to, after taking their entry interviews and their exit interviews, they found that on average, people that did not use the restroom were there for about an hour less
than the people
that used it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was like 0.8 hours or 0.84 hours on average. So almost an hour. And in that event, they made, it looks like $15.79 per person per hour.
Okay.
Or that was the amount per person of lost revenue by those people leaving early.
Huh.
They found that the people that used the facilities versus the people that didn't use the facilities stayed. So it was about an hour longer. But then there was another figure in here that I saw at another event. It was 3 hours longer. So it may have been people having to travel to the one event. They didn't give me details as to where these events were.
Okay.
Or when the events happened. But the people that event that stayed 3 hours longer may have had to travel further to get to it.
Sure,
They may have been out, someplace further away than, in a town with a lot of other options for food, for bathrooms, for other entertainment and accommodations. But so 60,000 people, if they save 2%, which is 1,200 people.
Okay.
1,200 people at $15.79. That's $18,000 or almost $19,000 in a day.
Wow.
That they saved.
Okay.
So if they increase the queue size, say the queue at that point at that event was about 15, 20 people. So every unit, every time you go to use a unit was 15 to 20 people. You're waiting 15, 20 minutes in line. And after maybe doing that once, or you look at the line and you're like, I don't know if I want to wait that long. I'm going to leave.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Once you leave, it's typically going to be harder to get people to come back. So they left early, on average about an hour earlier, and that hour translated to $15.79 per person. And so 2% would have resulted in $19,000 in additional revenue to the event promoters and to the vendors in a day.
Wow.
So they also do say that they base this off of a 5%. 5% of the total attendees were what they would consider refusing to use the restrooms because of unsanitary conditions. So they, on the entry interviews, I think it was like 30% said that they had no plans to use the restrooms.
Okay.
I think it was 32%, and 22% said that they'd never used the restrooms there before.
Okay.
They also wanted to point out, too, in the study, and it was interesting, that the majority of people, it was over 50%, the majority of people will say that the facilities are in good condition.
Okay. A majority?
A majority will.
Okay.
They will say it's in okay condition, or good or okay, I think was their terms.
Okay.
But in reality, it was like 57% had complaints about the facilities provided.
Interesting.
So the highest one being, it was unsanitary conditions. There's a list of like 5. Unsanitary conditions, odor, no toilet paper, long lines, and for one of the events specifically, I'm guessing it took place during dark at night.
No lights,
there were no lights in the units, so it's hard to see when you're inside and there's no lights. Yeah. So a lot of people use their phones and flashlights on their phones and stuff, but and then they'll drop them occasionally. So I know we found that a few times.
Yeah, I've been told that you guys found some phones, some wallets.
Keys, yeah, we find a lot of stuff.
Things like that, yeah.
But I'm sure the phones, if it is at night, and we have lights in all of our event grade units and a lot of our construction grade units as well. But without those lights, it can be very difficult to see inside. And so if you're using your phone, it's not unlikely that you drop it in the tank, and a lot of people probably don't want to reach their hand in there and try and find it.
I get that.
So,
I mean, I know I drop my phone all the time for no reason.
Yeah.
So I definitely wouldn't want to have to use it for a light.
Yeah. But really, and we kind of glossed over it there, but that's $19,000 in this specific example. Now, every event's going to be a little bit different. Your total duration is going to be different. Your, how many vendors you have, the dollar figure in revenue per person per hour is going to be different. A lot of those variables are very independent of each or to each event. But nonetheless, that's a very substantial amount of money. If they had a 20-minute line, if they reduce that down to 10, they probably would have saved even more early departures.
Yeah.
And that would have resulted in, massive savings. And
right.
So Q theory, the mathematical side, I tried to figure it out. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But
don't sell yourself short.
The Q theory, or the calculation, the actual formula that goes into it, it's not directly relative. So if the queue at this event was 20 people in line, 20 minutes, going to 10 it's not just doubling the number of units. Okay. So if you had 50 units here, it's not just doubling going to 100. You could reduce that queue size by just adding 10 or 20 units.
Sure.
So it's an exponential amount of savings with a static number of units on the increase and a static cost, because typically, going from, if we were to deliver 50 units to an event, we're not going to increase our per unit rate. And I think a lot of variables go into it, but I think most operators in the industry, we don't exponentially increase the price per unit with more units. Now, there are certain fees that come into it, but going from 50 units to 60 units is actually, sometimes it's going to cost less per unit too, depending on service frequency and delivery times and locations, things like that. So in all, you're actually, similar to construction sites, events will experience a net cost savings. The amount of money that they generate in revenue, the additional money that they generate in revenue, minus the cost of the increased units, is going to result in a positive amount of money for the event promoters and for the vendors. So, and that's also good because then, if you have a lot of vendor turnover at some of these events, where you're getting new vendors every year, people aren't wanting to come back, or just whatever it is, if the vendors make more money, I'm thinking specifically food and art and music and things like that, if they're making more money, they're going to be more likely to come back.
Yeah.
And so you can actually grow your event size and get more people there. Right. So, it's really critical to size, or to get the correct number of units and to have them placed correctly on event sites. It's really critical, and it does result in a significant financial impact on your event. It can.
Yeah, it can.
So, and then kind of going back to some of those smaller events, you're not going to be selling things, generally speaking, at a wedding, but you do want to keep your guests comfortable. You want to keep them happy, and you want to be able to spend some time with them. I mean, that's why you invited them there. At auctions, things like that, you don't want a bunch of people leaving early and missing out on, everything else you've still got to sell. So, so, I mean, really, at the end of the day, everybody's working towards the same mutual goal, a shared goal. As providers, we want to deliver the best experience to our customer, the promoter, but also to the end user, because the end user's experience ties directly to our company's reputation and the industry's reputation as a whole. Absolutely. And I know that's something that we here care very deeply about. Yeah. Most other providers in the industry do as well. And as a promoter, you want the best experience possible for your attendees, your guests, and your vendors, the people that are coming to the site and selling things and, being a part of the event, just in general. So, I would say we're really all working towards the same goal.
Like mentioned in the last video, portable restrooms are an investment. And,
yes.
And there's value there that...
There is, yeah. There's value, similar to construction sites, you get a net cost savings. For the events, you're going to get a net revenue increase by keeping people there longer, keeping them happier. Yeah, that's going to result in them wanting to come back again the next time you have that event, and telling their friends and bringing more people, and then you can grow the event as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, I would say overall we're all working towards the same shared goal here, which is the best experience possible. And that's really that's what we're working towards. So all of us in the industry, us, Salina Septic Service included, but we're all kind of working towards that same thing and wanting to make the best experience possible. And I keep repeating myself, but it's kind of, it is true.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So, well, I think that's going to do it. What are we going to talk about next? Are we going to move over to septic systems?
Might as well.
Yeah.
I know we have a couple topics that we've been wanting to bring up on that side of things. I think it's good to keep things alternating.
Try and balance everything. And we're in the winter season right now. We don't have a lot in Kansas, at least. We don't have a lot of outdoor events going on. So this is good information for spring and summer and fall. For our area, at least, I know down south in some places that the weather's nice. They have events year round, but
that'd be nice.
I know you want nice weather. So, but anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you guys.
Again, we wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Hope everybody's staying safe, staying healthy, and just enjoying the holiday season. So, thanks for watching.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week.